right, what's poppin', everybody? Welcome to the Satrix Money School podcast, where we're going to be breaking down big ideas about money into lessons that impact your everyday life. So think about it. Whether you're starting out or you've already established an already business, or you are literally thinking about your next big move, this is the perfect place for you guys to literally learn about money and also how to make money work for you. And of course, I am your host. My name is Karabo Mohol. In each episode, I'll be having a sit down with impactful South Africans who are not only effective in their paths, but they'll also be giving us a real life journey on money and also how money has impacted, their lives. But of course, this will be also about practicing, their tools and also how to be using their real stories and of course, looking into game-changing ideas that of course going to be helping you guys to build on a resilient and sustainable relationship with money. And of course, first and foremost, let's give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Satrix. Own the market. They're all about making investment for you easy and simple. And of course, they understand the complexities on investing, hence why they strive to make this platform easy for you guys. All right, so today's lesson, we're going to talk about building wealth young. Let's get into it. All right now I'm joined in the studio by an extraordinary entrepreneur and individual. I'm joined by Letabo Mokoena, the CEO of Walk Fresh. Now we're going to be discussing about his entrepreneurial journey and also his love for wealth, or his entrepreneurial wealth. Letabo, my brother, how are you, sir?
Thank you so much. I'm good, bro. How are you
Awesome.
doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being part of this beautiful podcast where we talk about financial literacy. And one thing I want to ask you first and foremost from the jump, when we speak about financial literacy, what first comes to your mind?
Money. Money and how to use it. How to use money. I think that was the first thing that comes to my mind. Because that's like literacy.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Beautiful. I think obviously when we talk about literacy, it's whether you're able to read or write.
Yes.
And when you're illiterate, you can't read or write.
Yes.
So when we speak about financial literacy, it's being able to understand wealth, understand money, right? How to receive it and also how to utilize it. Your CV, bro, is extraordinary, right? From a young age, you started your business, which is Walk Fresh, right? A shoe cleaning business, right? Let's speak about your journey first and foremost as an individual, right? Where did you grow up and how did you discover yourself from a young age to step into the limelight of starting something yourself?
Like you say, Letabo Mokoena, grew up in Ekurhuleni, Davidson, last township before Mpumalanga, like far east. Raised by my mom, Lorraine, my grandmother, my aunts, and my uncles, right? Female-led household. And I always say I grew up just like any other kid in the township. Went to Milori Primary School, went to Kgalema Intermediate, matriculated in Maboya Secondary School, all in Davidson, and went on to go study at Boston. I did a one-year course in public relations. After that, I went to UJ. I did a 3-year degree in corporate communications.
Beautiful.
And I think in between, when I was also studying in varsity, I did a couple of jobs on the side. In 2015, graduation year, I launched my business, the sneaker cleaning business.
Yeah.
But I think people are always interested in how I got to business and if I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I don't have a background of entrepreneurship at home. Instead, there's a lot of professionals like your nurses, your teachers, and all of that. So I never thought, I've always been a hustler. I mean, in school, you do this and that.
Yeah.
But I never thought I'd be like a business owner. So, but when the idea came, I think it was one of those right time, right place. And because I was also trying to figure out what to do with my life after graduating, it seemed like a no-brainer to start the business.
Yeah, I think you really jumped into the question that I had in terms of, whether one has an entrepreneurial background. Because, to be honest, for a lot of, people of color, it's rare to find mom, dad, or grandparents who own businesses.
Yeah.
And then we have that spark to say, my mother, did this, so I'm also going to fall into that lane.
Yeah.
So for you not having that at all, and then now you have that idea that I want to start something.
Yeah.
And obviously your studies are far different from, where you currently are.
Yeah.
How did that happen and how did you pivot or when did you pivot?
Yeah. I think I've always had an attitude of solving things that I don't like, of solving problems that inconvenience me.
Yeah.
And when I came back from varsity, one of the problems I had was unemployment in the township, right? a lot of my peers, the people that I grew up with, were unemployed, and I had left them 2009, and I came back 2014, and they were still unemployed. And I felt like there was something wrong in that, right? And I think when you're in varsity, you're so distanced from the societal issues that are happening outside of the walls of the institutions. And when I got out of that and I realized, okay, this is the reality of my friends, right? And that kind of haunted me because I was like, what can I do about this, right? Because these are people that I know, they're as bright as I am. It's just a matter of opportunities, right? And I was just looking for something that I can do with my friends,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't unemployed trying to find something to do. I was employed, but I really felt like, what can I do to maybe not give back to my community, but to try change the current situation within my immediate
Yeah.
community, you know, and that's how the idea came about. One of my childhood friends was cleaning his mom's sneakers,
Yeah.
and I just got back from work, chilling at the shop, Skokasi, and I said, hey, why don't you actually get paid for that? Because I have a couple of suede shoes that I
Yeah.
don't know how to clean, right? And ironically, like the homies laughed, like all the homies at the store, all my friends laughed because it was such a bizarre thing. And not bizarre because I was the first one to think about it, but because it's always been there, but no one actually thought of formalizing it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I don't believe we are the first sneaker cleaning business. Sneaker cleaning in the township has always been
It's
there.
always there, yeah.
It's just maybe we're the first to take it to this level,
To commercialize
to
it.
commercialize it at this
yeah.
level, you know. But that's how the idea came about. It was from my need to impact my community, to try to do something that can benefit me and my
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
And I would like to be the sub store and say, I didn't have a job. I'm not, right? I was privileged enough to have had an education, to be in a company that I was working for. But I think I saw this as an opportunity to do something maybe bigger than me.
Yeah.
So,
You know, and also just to go back to understanding the challenges of, not having somebody in your background or in your family who are business minded or who have businesses. Where did you get your support from in terms of, okay, you want to start this business, I need funding. How did you then put yourself in a space where you were able to take your business from an idea to a product that is literally there? How did that journey get up for you?
I think I credit that to my educational background,
Yeah.
right? Because I have studied a certain industry and having been in the workplace for a short period of time, I was exposed to how business works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And because of the internet, because of social media, I mean, in the year that I started my business, I still had access to the varsity library. So every day after work, I'd go to the library to do research, right?
Yeah, beautiful.
So for me, moving it from idea to business, it was really something that was a community project with my friends, right?
Yeah.
My friends were professionals, still are. Some are graphic designers, some are web designers, some are writers. I'm also a writer and
Yeah.
all of those things. So it was really sitting down with my friends and say, hey, I have this idea. And if I go into the market without doing it right, someone's going to see it and copy it.
Yeah.
So how do we then, before we even launch, do the market research, do the focus groups, sit down with people and say, hey, would you actually pay for this,
Yeah.
right? Do that background research, understand what the pain point is, because I thought I just needed to wash sneakers. Then I realized people needed their shoes to be
Yeah,
repaired
yeah.
and those things, right? And that's how, before we launched the business, we did that background. And I only launched on my graduation day, which was like 4 months later after I had the idea. But moving it from idea to business, especially without any background, it really is a result of the access of information we have right now
Yeah.
as young people, the internet. I did everything on my phone, right? Looked up business names. How do I register this? Google's your best friend, right? And I used to sit at a lot of restaurants for the Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
you know. But for me, without the business background, my friend was the internet, and I was able to utilize that to put out into the market the business.
You know what? Your story is extraordinary, and we know for sure that there are a lot of individuals, Kokasi, who make something out of themselves. But I want to ask you this question specifically for people who are watching who can feel like, okay, I come from a background that's not viable for me to thrive or to become somebody. What gave you the mindset to say this is my limitation, but I see myself beyond, the confinement of my environment? A lot of people, may think the environment should cage them. Why was it different for you to go to the library, to think beyond where you were? What makes you different from the next guy per se?
I think because of my appetite for risk, And I've been taught by my uncle that what is perceived as my handicap is actually my strong point, right?
Oh.
One person can look at it as if like my environment is a confinement, I have less resources, but I look at it as what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
If I fail at this, what's the worst that could
Yeah,
happen? Then I'm
yeah.
gonna go back to that environment. I'm
Yeah.
from it, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it.
Yeah.
The worst that could happen is that I succeed, right? So let me try that out, because I always say to people, you can't threaten me with poverty. You can't say, if Work Fresh fails, if Work Fresh fails, I go back to my back room.
Yeah.
I actually thrive in that space. I know how to exist in that space,
Beautiful.
right?
Wow.
So I always say to young entrepreneurs,
Beautiful.
it can't be an excuse where you're from. Instead, it actually is your leverage, because your point of your point of view is such a valuable thing. Not a lot of people have access to the what is deemed struggles.
Yeah.
How do you then interpret that into an opportunity and say, okay, because I know I'm from the township and we have water shedding.
Yeah.
How do I then start a business that sells water, but we only sell when the municipality has cut the water?
Cut the water off, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's always opportunity in every crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm never a victim.
Oh.
I don't believe in being a victim. I always think you are where you're supposed to be, and you have everything you need around you. You just have to be still and look, right? So for me, and I always say to people, I don't have a unique background. I don't have anyone backing me at home. No one can give me money for stock.
Wow.
But for me, I'm from an era yabo DJ Spoo when it was like, oh, Foster, you must, Melo Foster.
Yeah.
And it's really that. It's like, what's the worst that could happen?
In America, they call it the school of knocking down doors.
Yeah. I believe we're in an era where we have to create our own doors.
Wow.
Because those doors are outdated anyway, right? Those systems are not working. Be it how business is done, people are still teaching people how to register businesses, but people are now buying EFTs, right? So it's like, how do we create new doors that are relevant for us outside of the system,
Yeah.
right? Because the system hasn't served us in terms of like the workplace system, and as the youth, is always our responsibility to find alternatives to what's not working. So I don't believe in limitations, be it funding. Hey, we don't have funding. I never subscribe to that, because I'm always like, if I'm an entrepreneur, the first thing I need to be able to do is to sell. I'm not a charity case. I'm
Yeah.
a businessman.
Yeah.
And if business 101, you can't sell, you can't flip money, you can't manage money, then maybe there's time to go back to the drawing board, right?
You see, and this is the perfect place for us to even talk about conversation about how to, get money, flip money, and make money work for you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, bro. We understand now the basis of you are an entrepreneur out of your family, and I'm guessing for you to even have money conversations at home, it is difficult.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people of color can have this type of, acceptance to say it wasn't easy for us to talk about money.
Yeah.
Maybe even to say, what are you doing with your money? Are you saving? It's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
How did you teach yourself about, the power of wealth, of money? Did you always have a relationship with people who gave you an insight to that?
I didn't have anyone to sit me down and say, this is what money is, this is how you use money, and this is how you don't use money. But my mother always taught me to be independent, right? And in being independent, it required me to use what I had smart. Like, I have to be very strategic in using what I had, right? And at the time, I thought my mom didn't like me, but my mom always expected me to have money.
Yeah.
And especially in the township, a lot of us gents, the current model, and I was talking to my nephews, it still happens where the first principle you learn is saving your lunch money to go buy your favorite T-shirt or to go buy the Cavella, whatever, right? And that principle, I took it with me across the different parts of my life, right? Where I live on a budget, right? I don't remember where I saw that, but it was something on YouTube, and this is early days of YouTube, 2010, 2009, and it was just like the short video about budgeting to say, how much do you get, how much do you spend, how much are you left with? That simple principle, right? And I took that with me every month, 3 days or 4 days before payday or before I get any type of income. I sit and say, what do I need? What do I want? Where's the money coming?
But was it easy to get to that stage in terms of, thinking that way? Because it's never easy. Let's say you go through a long period of time without getting money,
Yeah.
and then you do. There are a lot of needs that you put upon your, or a lot of wants that you put
Yes.
upon yourself.
Yeah.
How do you get to a space where you discipline yourself to say, listen, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna save. I'm gonna invest. How easy was that for you, honestly?
So there's two progressions, right? One part of it is I've had experience with being an employee and being a business owner,
Ah, beautiful.
right? It's easier when you're a business or when you're an employee because you have a set salary. You know, rain or sunshine, end of the month I'm getting 1,000 rand, and this is my living expenses, and this is what I need to go to work to buy groceries. But when you're an entrepreneur, people want to always say to young entrepreneurs, your the business money is not your money, right? And that's very difficult if you don't have any backup, any type of funding, right? And I always extend a lot of compassion towards young entrepreneurs who are starting out and they're trying to manage their livelihoods and still trying to manage their business,
Yeah.
right? Because people want to say to me, or rather to young entrepreneurs, you must save. You can't save from zero, right? I'm not going to save money if I don't have electricity. I'm not. It's not practical, right? But why I think it's important to like now start focusing on that, you start small, right? I've always had two business accounts. I've always had two accounts, my personal one
And the
and
business
my business one. And then in the early ages of the business, you start paying yourself a salary. I used to pay myself 500, even if the business didn't have money. But I just knew that sometimes I'll pay myself 500 and still buy business stuff with that 500. But I trained myself the
Wow.
principle of being able to pay myself. And then over the years, you increase that as according to the business needs, right?
Yeah.
And our context is different. I always say to young entrepreneurs, we can't build like the European entrepreneurs. We can't build out of their background and context where they say pay yourself first. We can't. We have employees that are solely reliant on us, and we also have to go back to our own principles of existence, which is Ubuntu, right? You think about other people,
Yeah.
and not allow the concepts and ideas of capitalism to like overcloud us,
Yeah.
right? So for me, learning early to differentiate, okay, this money for airtime is for business, this money for airtime is for my phone. This is the business phone, this is my, you start small, right? Nothing is going to happen like this. You will never get to a point where you're, okay, now the business is making money, I can separate. That the habit is not there. You haven't built that culture.
Wow.
But if you start building it when you're young and you start saying, okay, the business is making 1,000 rand a month, I'll pay myself 50 rand on principle. On principle, and then even your brain gets used to that. But as you go older, then you understand, even for the business, what's the budget, right? And then you mature as an entrepreneur, you understand income statements and all those things.
Yeah.
But from early stages, it's about simple, what do I need? What do I want? Where is everything else at? And once you understand that principle, then you're also able to apply the discipline. There's no freedom without discipline. If you're not disciplined in business, you'll buy a GTI with money before you deliver for a service, right? But if you train yourself to have discipline and be able to say no to yourself, because you have access to the business
Yeah.
account, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to say no to yourself and allow yourself chance to grow organically over time. You know.
You said there's no freedom without discipline.
No.
Beautiful. When you look at how difficult it is for, one to begin their journey and get something, for you to speak about, you need to have that discipline beforehand, before you accumulate whatever you've accumulated, then you want to put those measures in to say, I'm going to start doing this. It's already too late. We also speak about don't despise humble beginnings. But within those humble beginnings, you also need to set those parameters for yourself, which is a lesson that one really, learns throughout their journey. But now I want to ask you something. When we speak about, or when you speak about the meaning of wealth to you when you started out your business, has that definition of what wealth meant to you then still applies to what it is today?
Yeah, I'm always careful with big words, right?
Yeah.
And I always interact with life from my background, from my perspective, from my lived experience. Guys in the township, we're not taught about wealth because we're all surviving. All of us are trying to get to the next meal,
Yeah.
trying to get to the next paycheck or whatever the case may be, right? Honestly, wealth is something that I learned as I got older, right? And also from a distance, right? Asking yourself, how come this guy's dad doesn't work, but his family is well off.
Yeah.
I've never seen this guy go to work, right? Because where I'm from, everyone, every morning, the taxi ranks are full. Everyone goes to work. 5 p.m., everyone comes back, right?
Yeah.
But this guy is sitting at a restaurant at 11 a.m. Parkhurst is full of people. Kloof in Cape Town is full of people sitting there. And then I had to ask myself, what do these people do, right?
yeah.
And then from then I understood that, oh no, like this is wealth, right? This is wealth. And then before you even go to the concept and word wealth, you start understanding, oh no, there's rich people and there's wealthy people. And then you're like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Rich people are like this and wealthy people, you know? So for me, I first had to understand what these words mean. That's why I'm like, I'm always careful with big words.
Yeah.
I first have to understand, and I understood that, okay, wealth is being able to create something that can outlive you. For example, as an entrepreneur, right? If I'm building Walk Fresh, I'm hoping to build something that maybe my grandkids, kids, can be able to say, oh no, our great father was whack, we can do something else. And they can only say I was whack because their understanding of the world is different based on the world that I've created for them, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know, right? So for me, my understanding of wealth has evolved from when I was like a young kid doing first year, and now being exposed to people who are brought by their dads during school hours. I'm like, dog, where does your dad work, bro? Like, he's like, oh no, it doesn't work. He just does this and this here and there. And understanding, oh, they're from the wealthy family. There's certain measures that have been put in place, right? And it's not always generational. Some people are able to build the wealth right now for their families, right? So for me, when I was a young kid, wealth was like, I'm not working, I'm wealthy, right? But then as I got older, the word evolved for me to say, how do I build legacy, right? How do I build a legacy of wealth where the next generations after me in my family will see the world differently because the needs and the wants are catered for,
Yeah.
right?
Now, do you not think your business right now is measured on its value for you and its impact that it's supposed to have on wealth or legacy? So let's say, for example, right now, you transcend, right? Would you still feel proud of the value that you were able to bring with your business? Or would you feel like, no, because I didn't hit that status of being wealth or having a legacy, that means what I've bed fruit is not worthy enough?
I think I was fortunate that when I started my business, I didn't start it from a place of lack.
Okay.
So I've always operated from a place of abundance to a point where we also, within the business, started a school that we call Soul Survivors, where we teach other entrepreneurs how to start and run sneaker cleaning businesses.
Oh, beautiful.
Right? Because for me, it's like,
Ukasi.
yeah, Kukasi, but we have 200 entrepreneurs across the country that we're mentoring, right? So for me, it has always been about how do I duplicate myself as Letabo? There's enough daily sneakers for all of us. There's too many daily sneakers that I think I can do all of them. But then this is an opportunity for me to impact other people's lives, right?
Yeah.
So touch wood, if I were to leave the earth today, I think I've interacted, I've imparted the level that I've learned in the past 10 years as an entrepreneur to other entrepreneurs that can also wake up and say, oh no, that guy is late, but because he was around, we're able to do this and
I like
that and
that.
that.
I
right?
really
So for
like
me,
that. I really like that.
I really also don't think Walk Fresh is my purpose. I think what Walk Fresh allows me to do is my purpose, right? That's why I'm not emotionally attached to the business. You could call me 2 years later and say I sold it to do something bigger that can allow me to touch people in Botswana and touch entrepreneurs in Maputo. Because for me, I always think you can't live life for yourself, right? That's a very selfish thing to do. And if you do live life to yourself, I think that's a very shallow life to live. because
Yeah.
It's only you.
Right.
There's only so much you can eat and do. But if you allow yourself, I always say to my friends, I would like to die empty, right?
Yeah.
Whatever God has placed in my life or in my heart to dish it out. So for me, I believe in building a legacy, but I'm also not naive to the importance of wealth.
Beautiful.
The world functions off of that. So I'm not naive to how the world is structured. But I always believe the money will come.
Definitely.
It always does. It's inevitable.
Definitely,
right?
definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah. So when we for me, when we talk about entrepreneurship, right? It's not just about, commercializing money. There has to be a cultural consequence, something that represents the possibility of human endeavor for the benefit of all. So entrepreneurship is to empower. So now when I linked your business with wealth and to say, is it just purely about, would you measure your value with wealth, with money? And you mentioned that there are so many entrepreneurs that you are mentoring.
Yeah.
Denzel mentioned such an amazing quote to say, each one teach one. You are able to put out a hand and lift someone else up. And that is also wealth, where a generation can thrive because you existed.
Yeah.
Your business existed, which is extraordinary. So now let me ask you something. What role did, discipline play and sacrifice, for you to build your business?
As I said earlier, there's no freedom without discipline, right? What separates normal guys to top achieving and top performing guys is discipline.
Yeah.
You can have all the talent, you can have all the backing, but if you don't have the self-discipline to, number one, say no to yourself and say no to others and stick to your word, finish what you start, it's only a matter of time until you're in a loop of studying and studying and studying. I know friends, I have one friend who's been studying different businesses for the past 10 years, and I've been doing one business for the past 10 years, right? And because of that discipline I've taught myself, I'm able to do other things now, right? And that's why I even started Soul Survivors, is because I said, oh no, I can't keep talking to everyone every day.
Yeah.
Let's create a structure that's gonna be able to deal with this, because now it's chowing into my time. I feel like I'm all over the place. It's disturbing my discipline, right? So for me, discipline is it's an important thing. Even when we're in pitching sessions and maybe I'm an adjudicator, someone is pitching their business, the first thing that I look for is this person disciplined, right? And not discipline for other people themselves. Can they manage their life, right? Because if then they have the discipline to manage their life, I would assume that they would have the discipline to manage their finances, right? So I don't think there's any freedom, be it financial freedom and any type of freedom, without discipline. And we can look at different scenarios that shows us that, but I truly believe in any journey, especially entrepreneurship. Early this morning, I was talking to my business partner, and we were trying to figure out, why do a lot of executives have relations with their employees, right? And I said, there's no discipline, right? The thing about being in leadership is that there's so much power you have. What you do about it tells us about your discipline, right? And leadership and being in a certain position will expose you whether you're disciplined or not, right? So I think discipline has to be taught in schools.
Wow.
This is why there was a time where people had to be taken to military bases to learn about things like that. This is why traditionally people had to go Kokomeng to learn about that, because I don't know what happened, but we lost it somehow. But I really think without discipline, you can teach the young people about money all you want, but if you don't teach them the discipline that it requires and say, here's $10, go to the candy store and not buy anything, come back with it and let's see, right? No one is going to do those push-ups for you. You can't be disciplined for someone else. People have to be disciplined for themselves, right? And it's taught with small things, right? Small things. Come back home at 7. You're there at 7. Come back home at, and I'm privileged enough that I had a parent. My mom was very strict, right? We say our parents are strict, but they're instilling certain principles in us that today as grown men, we're able to be responsible for our lives and be responsible for other people's lives because of the discipline we have.
This is so profound, because there's also a stat, right, that says 93% of startups in the first 5 years fail, because of discipline. And you were speaking about, the most powerful thing is before, you receive money, you need to learn discipline. And schools need to further educate on discipline. Extraordinary conversation that, won't be shared or people won't even find anywhere else. My brother, so your story is profound because, you didn't have a background where you were able to be taught per se. You self-taught yourself. You took yourself to school also. When did you now learn, within your journey about money management? And also, how can money management make or break a business?
I mean, there's no business without money management. Let's start there because the first principle of business is money. We're all in business for money. I mean, when I was a young entrepreneur, I'm still young, but when I was starting out, I remember I sat in a meeting with this other director of an engineering company, and he asked me, "Why are you in business?" And I said, "Oh no, I want to create jobs." And he's like, "Oh no, that's the wrong answer. I'm gonna ask you again. Why are you in business?" I said, "Oh no, because I want to build a company." And he said, "Okay, come back tomorrow. Let's have."
Oh.
I had to drive from Davidson back to Rivonia, and we sat down. And on my way there, on my way back the following day, I was like, why am I doing this thing? Right? Okay, I want to create jobs. Okay. And then I came back, I was like, oh no, I'm in this to make money. Right? And this is why I've always ducked the bullet of being a social entrepreneur. Right? Because my fear is that when you're a social entrepreneur, you have to shy away from the money conversation and be solely focused on the impact and people. And that only happens to entrepreneurs of color, which is weird for me, right? So for me, I came back and I said, oh no, I'm in business to make money. He was like, okay, that's the right answer. And he gave me a 50,000 Rand grant. Because it's like, once you understand the first principle of business, you'll understand that after the money conversation, you can do other things. You won't employ people if the business doesn't have money.
Yeah.
You can't, right? So for me, money is an important thing, and I'm fortunate enough that I have so many mentors around me. Some of them are my peers, some of them are older than me.
Yeah.
But my approach to business has always been, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I DM people, I DM strangers and say,
I like
hey,
that. I like that.
this is what I'm dealing with. This is my name. Quick answer, one sentence answer. What do you think about this? And even if a stranger doesn't know me, they're like, okay, if it's a quick answer, boom, right? So money management is crucial. It's crucial for any business. It could be like a sole proprietor where you're selling sweets somewhere. If you can't count the cents, I annoy my employees because I'm like, I want to see the receipt. Even if you're swiping for parking, I want to see it, right? Because the cents add up, right? Once you get into the culture of saying, okay, we spent 350 on stationery, we spent 3,000 on this,
Yeah.
then you want to understand the discrepancy, right? And that teaches you how to be frugal, especially if you bootstrap, especially if you start without funding.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to manage money. Like I said initially, you get into the culture of following up on all the monies in the business. But money management, and like I said, big words are dangerous if you don't comprehend or think about them critically, right? So for me, management is really, how do I track what's coming in and what's going out at a very basic level? Even if it's me going through my bank statement every month.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with my accountant and I said, hey, can you please send me our management accounts for the past 6 months? Because there's something I think we're bleeding somewhere.
Yeah.
I need to trace it, right? But because I have that culture of tracing what's going in and tracing what's going out, and because of that culture, I'm able to tighten things in terms of expenditure in the business. And because I bootstrapped, I know how to get things cheap.
Yeah.
you
Wow.
know?
Yeah.
So I think management, it should be simplified in terms of, it, for me, it really is what's coming in, what's going out, at what speed.
Yeah.
Are we making money quick enough that when we're spending it, we are not left with anything, right? So understanding that basic principle and simplifying to say, what came in last month, what went out?
Yeah.
Who did it go to? Can we negotiate? And since having applied that principle is something that's become the company culture, the lady who sits at our front desk will always tell you, "Ngiqala receipt," because we need to know where what went and how we're getting it back. You know, so for me, that's.
You also mentioned something in the beginning which is profound to the story of an entrepreneurial journey, which was a mentor.
Yeah.
And also your willingness to send out messages, just so you can get that extra help. How important is it, or someone wants to start something, but they say, I don't have a platform, or I don't have somebody who can guide me to become or to do what I want to do. What would you advise such a listener?
It's something that I've always had to deal with, especially with young entrepreneurs. And I'm very crude, I'm very strict, I'm very disciplined. And I always say to people, don't make your problems our problem. Don't preempt that you have a problem, that you want to start, but start. Start. Come to me when you're stuck. Not when you haven't even started and now you want me to brainstorm for you and workshop for you. No, like when I started Work Fresh, there was no blueprint for sneaker cleaning. I couldn't ask anyone how to build a POS for sneaker cleaning. It wasn't there. But because I started myself, people come. If you start, the people will come. The right people will come, right? But I'm always cautioning young entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs to not over mentor themselves. Trust yourself and say, look, I think I'll do this. If I fail, I'll call someone.
Yeah, and it's good to fail also.
No, I encourage failure.
Yeah.
There's no growth without failure, right? I always say to my team, make the decision. If it's wrong, we'll deal with the consequences, but I need to train you how to fail.
Yeah.
Because the sooner you fail, the sooner you get over the anxiety of failure, and the sooner you will become sharp as a business, right? But for me, in terms of mentorship, the first thing I always advise is don't look for people that you don't know first, right? And try avoid looking for extremely successful people because their reality is different, right? I always encourage people to learn from people who are also learning. It's easy to teach when you're learning, right? That's why even when I mentor entrepreneurs, I always say to them, where I am in business, there's a big gap between us. When I started, what social media is today was not there. So I don't really know how to build in social media right now, but your context is different. Here's someone who's also building, but maybe 2 years ahead of you. I'm 10 years in. I don't think the information I can give you would be relevant per se to you, but I can give you the principles because the business principles are universal, right? So with mentorship, a lot of my peers are my mentors.
Yeah.
For example, Lula Mile is my age mate, but Lula was in business before I was in business. And I said to him, hey man, I'm having this problem with VAT. We have too much cash on hand for VAT and we end up spending it. That by the time we have to pay SARS, we don't really have the cash flow. And he's like, oh no, pay it every month. And I was like, ooh, I wouldn't have thought of that. Now we had to make an arrangement with SARS to pay it. But the principle there was that I could trust my peer as my mentor.
Yeah.
And not think I was in because in Tang I am, but I could trust my peer as my mentor, right? And also, when you go to your mentors, they shouldn't be solving your problems. They should be allowing you to steer you. They should say, no, not like that, like this, but not go there.
Yeah.
Because even people who you aspire to, we are busy. All those people are busy, right? And time is valuable. So even with the people that I approach, I send a text that's going to give them no choice but to give me one answer. They don't have to think. They will say, no, let's have a go there or go there. But I'm not saying where must I go, right? It's easy to help someone who's in motion than someone who's standing.
You know, I'm realizing that I'm sitting with a man of wisdom, honestly.
Yeah.
And excuse me, you mentioned something about, you know, your friends or, you know, your mentors should steer you and not give you, you know, everything.
Yeah.
You look at the generation that we're in now. If you look at, you know, the power of AI, people are using AI not to guide but to help, which is wrong. So we're in a generation where, you know, there's so much laziness and we just want people to do things for us. But now, just to go back, you spoke about money management and you spoke about the importance of money. If I want to ask you, what one habit or which habit should South Africans develop first when it comes to money?
Budget. Budget.
Budget insurance.
No. Budget. And I thought about it, right? Because when I was driving, I was like, what's been the most important thing in my money management methodology, style, right? It's budget, where I have a note on my phone where even when I go do groceries, I say, what do I need? I write that down. And if it's not on the list, I'm not buying it, right? So budget allows you to stay within
That also
your means.
speaks of the discipline also. Like.
Yes, right? Budget also allows you to stay within your means because a lot of the problems that you'll face with mismanagement of money is working outside of your means, right? There's nothing wrong with being ambitious. There's nothing wrong with aspiring for more, but everything is wrong when you're not realistic with your means. You say, okay, this is where I am. And I said to my team 2017, I said in 2017, I figured out how to make this business R1 million a year business. It means a day we need to clean so many shoes and spend so much a month, right? But why I'm remembering this is to say, you have an end goal, but what's necessary now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You do want to open a store in Science and open wherever. But what do we have now that can slowly get us there? Right? So I think once you live off of a budget, and pop culture has made a budget a bad thing. Like, you're living off of a budget. And I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Like, I really think allowing yourself and accepting that I have to live on a budget. I know what I have to spend every weekend. And if I spend that on Friday, I'm broke for the rest of the weekend.
man.
Do you understand? So because of a budget, then I'm able to live like
And now the life that we are in of social media, where you want to compare with another young entrepreneur who's doing well, now you also want to live outside of that budget.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of stuff that you really are pressing on speaks also on the discipline that I mentioned. Because if you don't have that, then what are you also in this for?
And also, Dame Dash taught me this: don't count other people's pockets. Don't worry about what other people have. That's silly. Don't ever think about, this guy's driving this car, this much he earns. No, like, it's not your money. Only worry about your pockets. And once you start worrying about your pockets, then you realize, oh no, this is what I can do. He can do that. Me, this is what I can do. Then you start understanding your life, right? So as an entrepreneur and just as a human being, don't worry about other people's pockets.
Yeah. And now one's probably asking, like, how do you balance your own personal needs to grow in your own business?
Honestly, that's been the most difficult thing, right, for me in my experience, especially because I started a business bootstrapping it. And because of my stubbornness, I didn't necessarily believe in funding the business at the early stages.
Yeah.
Because my theory on funding is funding for what? Am I funding for survival or for growth? And I only believe that maybe that has changed over the years, but I strongly believe back then that funding has to be for growth. For survival, you need to learn how to survive. You need to build the grit. You need to build the experience of getting yourself out of situations, right? So for me, it's really about how do I use what I have now, right? How do I use what I have now to propel me to thingy, So maybe I lost my thought process there. But maybe what's the question again?
How do you balance your...
Yeah. So it's been difficult because for you to balance, it means there's one on left and one on right.
Okay, yeah.
Right? That's why you have to balance. But when there's nothing on the left, then there's only your business revenue and your business is your only source of income. It becomes difficult to balance that. But like I said, because even in the early stages, I taught myself that this is not necessarily my money, it's the business money.
Business money.
But I'll give myself the little that the business can afford in that time, and we'll grow it over the years, right? But also understanding that I'm working towards something. You cannot build a business without sacrificing. Only after 10 years of running and building Work Fresh, I only have a medical aid this year.
Oh.
Do you get me? And not because I couldn't afford it in the other years, but because I was like, I'd rather take that money back into the business. That's the sacrifice. And you have to watch your peers who you went to varsity with buy houses, buy cars, get married. And you have to be able to hold the fort and say, I'm building something, I have a vision, the time will come. But right now, this is what's necessary. This is the budget. And because I've done that, Workforce 1010 in June, only now I can say, I need a house. I need this for my life, right? Because you also learn when you've built that, now you need to start taking care of number one, which is you. Because then you realize if you are exhausted, then the business also suffers, right? So for me, the only formula for me with my background, right, is you have to sacrifice. I used to say to my friends, I can't go out with you to the party because tomorrow I have to clean the shoes that you went to the party with. And that's the burden I'm carrying.
Wow.
And I've seen, I've seen my friends, we call it operating. I've seen them operate and I'm chilling indoors because I'm like, nah, wait for the shoes so that I can clean them because I'm building this thing.
Wow.
Right? So it requires
That is
that
so
sacrifice.
business-minded, honestly.
Yeah, it requires that sacrifice. That's why I'm saying you can't be an entrepreneur who's a victim. You're a problem solver, you're a leader, and your burden shouldn't be everyone's burden. I said to my business partner, it's festive season, everyone is having a good time, the sun is out, it's our time to lock in. We are celebrating Jan when everyone else is stressing. You can't live in the same algorithm that your clients are living in
Yeah.
as a business owner. So you have to sacrifice and understand, Guti, when people are having a good time, it's your time to invoice. When people are struggling to find their feet, it's your time to have a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't want to live the same life your team is living, your employees are living.
Oh.
It's not natural. It doesn't make sense, right? But that requires discipline. When everyone is having fun, you're doing overtime. You're leaving the office at night, right? That's the discipline I'm talking about, but that's also the sacrifice that's necessary. Unless if you want to build the small business forever, right? You're always a small business, you're always getting a grant, you're always getting a podcast and they're telling you what you need. You're never in a position to say, okay, we want to invest in this business as Workfresh, right? So in terms of separating your personal finances and your businesses, you have to build a business that can afford you. Because I knew Workfresh couldn't afford me with my degree and my work experience. I knew, I was like, this business can afford me. But I'm going to build it to a point where it can afford me. And when it does afford me, it's going to pay me my value.
Right.
Right. And now that it's at that point, I'm like, okay, cool. With those principles that I've applied in business, I'm applying them in my life. I want a house. Can I afford this? What's my budget? Do you understand? So now I'm taking what I learned in business and applying in my own personal life. But at the early stages, I don't want to lie to people. There's no balance. And anything worth living for you shouldn't be able to balance it. It must knock you out so you can wake up again and say, how do I build it?
Yeah.
And wake up. But unless if you're coming from a different background, I don't think everyone is from my same background. I don't want to assume that everyone is from maybe you have that backing, then you can balance. Some people are in business, but they're also at work. So there's that balance that's required. Our contexts are different, but from my lived experience, it's either or. One dealer from Thesis was said to me when I was still an employee and I was running my business. I don't remember what I asked him, but he said, actually, Tab, I can't really give you the answer because you're still employed. So you're not fully in, right? And if I give you the answer, you're actually playing with my time because you can leave this anytime and go back to work. I can't. This is my life. And only when I left my job to do Workfresh full time, I realized I was like, oh, the game is different when you're doing this full time, right? So it's really about swallowing the pill and saying, okay, I'm giving this thing 5 years. I'll put everything I had. I used to sell my jeans to my friends because I was like, I need to pay salaries.
Sure.
Right, I'm going to put everything I have in it. And if I'm true to my word, and if I really believe the promise that I'm giving to clients, this thing must give me an ROI, right? And you build from there, and then you swallow the self, right? I wish someone told me when I was a young entrepreneur that you have to kill the I. You have to die for a bit and focus on this thing. And then it will tell you when it's time for you to resuscitate your life, right? But it's not a nice journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not nice watching people doing things that you also want to do. And you're also young, man, but that's the price of the 1%.
All right. So I can tell that you are, Mr. Money. You love money.
Yes, yes.
When I
yes.
when I asked you what does financial literacy mean to you, the first thing you said was money.
Yeah.
But now you've been in business your business started when you were 22 years of age, right? Let's speak about the mistakes that you made handling money, and also how did you bounce back from those lessons?
Yeah. I think one of the most damning mistake I made was being impulsive with money, right? And impulsive meaning spending as and when,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm spending in the business, so I don't think anything's wrong because it's not like I'm buying sneakers, but I'm reinvesting in the business. So one of the mistakes that I've made in the past is impulsive spending, right? Especially when there's like a decent amount of money in the business where you're like, okay, we want to buy this machine. And my mentor, Slebogo, said, every time you have access to money, give yourself 2 days to breathe. If there's 1,000 rand that comes into your account or 10,000, give yourself 2 days to breathe, be sober, and then start actioning, right? And not money comes in and you suddenly
Quick, yeah.
right? So I think the one of the mistakes that I did when I was a young entrepreneur was impulsive spending. Chill. Give yourself time to think about the things that are needed, what you need to do, and then act on that, right? And I think I'll link it back to impulsiveness. I opened a store in Soweto, and we lost a lot of money. From that project, we lost like 300,000. And this is early days of our business, right? And this 300,000 was funding we had gotten from somewhere else. And because of our impulsive spending and not budgeting, we opened the shop. It was a nice party, but a year later the store closed. We couldn't get the ROI from that. Right? So I think the biggest lesson I've learned is really don't be impulsive, don't be emotional when it comes to money. Calm down, ask questions, compare prices, and then act, right? So for me, as I'm thinking about it sitting here, the impulse, which I've dealt with over the years, I'm very calm right now, but also the lack of planning, right? The lack of planning. I always say to young entrepreneurs, money shouldn't find you waiting for it, right? It must find you knowing where it's gonna go as soon as it comes, right? So that you have a plan that, okay, I've applied for this. If they give me 3,000, this is where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Because if it finds you without a plan, you won't see where it went, right? You really won't see. You'll buy stock, you'll pay that person, and then you don't know what you deal with it. But if you have a plan, and such plans are very intimidating when you're a young person because you think you must have a financial plan. But I always want to simplify things. What do we need? By when do we need it? How much is it? That's the plan. And when the money comes, we have their banking details, we pay that, then we go back to normal, right? So for me, the mistakes is really like that impulse. And I've forgiven myself because I was young. You know, when you're young, no one in your family has ever had 100,000 Rand and you have 100,000 Rand in funding. You want to buy all these things for the business. And then you sit with things that you don't need. You're like, we didn't need this machine. Now you have to sell it at a lower price, right? So dealing with that impulse, but also learning how to plan, whether it's coming or not, but learning how to plan and not being caught up in the big words, financial planning, risk assessment. No, like simplify those things and say, what's the plan? What do we need? By when? And where are we going to get the money? And does have to be one page. I always say to my team, don't come to me with anything that's more than 2 pages. It's too complicated. If we can't explain it to a 6-year-old, it's too complex. So simplify it. This is the plan. Boom, boom, boom. In my office, I have a black wall. I write with a chalk. This is what we need. So we need simplify it like that.
Oh, Dada Mkwena.
Thank
Man,
you so much.
such a privilege and, you know, extraordinary blessing to have this conversation with you. You've also opened up my mind, my eyes, and just understanding the journey of one takes as an entrepreneur. And also, most importantly, the discipline aspect has to be the first thing that we all acquire in our journey. All right, guys, so I was joined in the studio by the CEO and the founder of Walk Fresh, Letabo Mokoena. Extraordinary conversation that we had. Hope you guys found that engaging and informative. Please always refer back to this lesson to boost you guys in your journey as an entrepreneur, as an app developer, or whatever it is that you guys are seeking to do in this life. Extraordinary. Peace.
In a world where investments were expensive and out of reach for most, Satrix followed the rhythm of its own drumbeat. In the year 2000, Satrix introduced index tracking to South Africa. Since then, we have made investing accessible to everyone. Through low fees and no minimum investments, we give all South Africans the chance to own the market. Our range of investment products offer diverse access to strategies and asset classes across local and international markets for any stage of your life. We've kept in tempo with our community, winning the Salter People's Choice Award for the last 7 consecutive years. Our cost-effective and award-winning products offer value to individuals and institutions alike. Satrix has managed index tracking funds for institutional clients since 2000. From ETFs and unit trusts to life-pooled and segregated portfolios, to meet the different needs of clients, pension fund members, and organizations. By driving the global cadence of indexation, our bespoke solutions have contributed to Satrix holding the largest market share in the South African ETF industry. And we're expanding our African footprint. At Satrix, indexation is anything but passive. We stand proudly as the drumbeat of possibility. Satrix, own the market.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm joined in studio all the way from Cape Town. I got with me Lauren Jacobs. She is a senior portfolio manager at Satrix. Lauren, how are you?
I'm getting you, Garabo.
Good. Thank you. First and foremost, how's Cape Town?
It's quite chilly today, but we make do with what happens here.
Yeah.
The weather.
Chilly, it's hot this side, but I know obviously you and I are going to have a hot conversation if possible. All right, so today's conversation is going to be setting up your first investment. But first and foremost, Lauren, when we speak about financial literacy, what first comes to your mind?
For me, it's really about understanding yourself first and understanding, what your needs are, what your view is about money. And then from there, moving on to understanding what is saving, what is investing. And then it just goes on to, if I invest, where am I going to invest? So it really is about starting with self and understanding yourself and how you relate to money, and then how the money works from there on.
Yeah. All right, cool. Awesome. So obviously now the conversation is setting up your first investment. So when we speak about investment, Lauren, so for me, in layman's term, is it taking what I have, right, my own seed, and I plant it somewhere, hoping that that particular seed will somehow, reap fruits in a couple of weeks, months, or years. What is, in your own perspective, what is an investment first and foremost?
So investing is different to saving. Saving, you have a very specific goal, which you can also have for investing. But with investing, it's really a long-term look at what you're going to do, where you want to see your money in the future. So it's a long-term look at, do I want to save for the house? Do I want to save for education in the future? It's building wealth. It's not just building money on a monthly basis in a fixed deposit. It's really talking about your future self and your future wealth. And that's where investing is much more powerful than saving.
Yeah. And then obviously, Lauren, I also come from a background where, I grew up not, it wasn't really easy to have conversations about money, with my family, because they also, found it difficult to talk about money. But now, how do we break the barrier to make people, especially of color, to understand the importance of investing? Why do we need to invest?
For me, I know, it's really about thinking of your future self and considering where do you see your future self and how do you build not only your current wealth, but your future wealth to ensure that the way you see yourself, you will get to that point. It's really about building a relationship with money and building a relationship that says, I want to be consistent, I want to be financially disciplined, and investing actually, it talks to those traits in yourself that you can build over time by investing and being consistent in investing.
Okay, cool. So now I understand to invest, I'm building into my future, right? I take what I have and I plant it somewhere and hoping in the future it will reap benefits. But now let's talk about what is something that I need to understand first before I make my first investment. What do I need to, what information should I gather for me to understand before I make the first investment?
So the biggest thing here, especially for young people, is that investing is a long-term journey, and as a young person, you have time on your side. So and it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's really a long-term thought process and a long-term submitting yourself to this discipline of investing over time. And a lot of people expect, I'm investing, I want immediate results. But really the power of investing lies in compounding over time. So, you get returns on your investment, and those returns are reinvested, and it just snowballs into this future wealth that you're building towards. And really, like we mentioned at the beginning around financial literacy, it's really about understanding yourself in terms of what are your goals? What is your risk tolerance? So can you accept if the market goes down? Can you lose some of your capital, like some of the money that you've invested, or can you not lose some of it? And then again, talking to what is your time horizon? So in terms of your goals, you're trying to understand, am I just building wealth? Am I saving towards a house? Am I saving towards education? And time horizon, is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? In the case of when you're much older and you're going to retire, is it 40 years? So we need to just understand, why am I doing this, and to what goal am I reaching towards in which time horizon? And then of course there's risk. right? And it's quite misunderstood. You know, when you're young, you have this one major thing, which is time, and it allows you to take on more risk because you have more years, you know, you have decades to recover from any market downturn, and then also to benefit from long-term growth. Because markets go up and down. That's absolutely normal. But if you start investing early, you can ride those dips, and you don't have to panic when the market drops because you're not planning to cash out next month or next year. You have this long haul of time to invest for your future.
But you see now, obviously, when we talk about the conversation of investing, it's a huge conversation on its own. But now, as a young man, or young woman, I'm listening to say, okay, cool, there might be risks. Am I taking a gamble to take my money somewhere, and am I guaranteed that I'll always see a return of an investment? Is that always a certain for me when I invest?
So I think it's not a gamble. It as long as you stay consistent and you stay invested. So it's not about timing the market. So timing when I should put my money in, when I should take it out, should I be changing from equities to bonds? I mean, that's a different story. But it's really about staying the course. It's about investing and staying the course and being disciplined and being consistent over time that will lead to this compounding of your investment and the growth of your investment over time.
Okay, cool. But now, obviously, this is it's not as easy as, we're just having a conversation now to understand, investing. So now, if I feel overwhelmed and I want to start investing, Lauren, what are 2 or 3 major steps that I need to take before I begin to invest?
So one of the main things that that we can focus on is just that you have to understand, like, educating yourself is the first part, which we've already said. Learn what the basics are. What is a stock? What is an ETF? What is a bond? And there's a plethora of knowledge available to you on Google, on apps. There's all these people on all the socials doing little videos around what are different investment vehicles. And from that point on, you then can say, okay, but what is my goal? What do I want to save towards, and what is the size of that goal? Is it 3 years of education? Is it a new car? Is it a holiday? And then you just have to start, right? You can start small. You can start with whatever you have. And I mean, on some platforms, you can start with as little as 50 Rand for each investment, if you wanted to. So it's really about starting. And you can start with as little as you have or as much as you have, but it's just about starting and then staying consistent. Because like you said earlier, investing is like planting a tree. You water it, you nurture it, you give it time to grow. And it might not be this huge tree at the beginning. It's not looking very impressive. But over the years, it becomes something strong and valuable and really lasting. So it also, and staying consistent means not panicking when the market goes down. Because like I mentioned earlier, you have time. You have lots of time as a young person. So stick to your plan, review it annually. Don't even look at it on a daily basis, and just keep learning. Keep learning.
Yeah. And I think I like the fact that you spoke about you can start anywhere, which was probably going to be my next question, where you can have 50 Rand, but can just really start. And that's also on a lot of people's mind is, where can I begin? So Lauren, is it true if I start with a huge sum of money, obviously my return will be much more than if I start obviously with as little as I can?
So yes and no. So if you had a large sum of money and you left it there, it would grow over time. But if you had a small sum of money but you consistently put away that small sum of money, say it's 50 Rand a month, and then next year you start working and you can now put away 150 Rand a month, and you consistently also increase that contribution over time, because you are adding to that investment and consistently adding to that investment, you will then the investment will grow in terms of not only the growth of your capital, but also the growth of your overall investment. And it really is around just, if you can, being consistent and also not panicking and withdrawing. That's the other thing. And we all have emergencies and we understand that, but you almost need to separate what is my emergency savings versus what is my investment. And at all points in time, what you really want to do is stick with your investment. If you can, don't use that for emergency savings. Use your emergency fund for your emergency financial needs, and just be consistent on your investment. And it's time in the market. You want to stay in the market as long as you can, for as many weeks and months and years as you can, to build that growth over time.
Okay, noted. And obviously, Lauren, in your journey, right, in your business or in your line of work, what are the most common areas that you've seen first-time investors make, and also how can they avoid those mistakes that you've seen?
Some of the common mistakes we see is really trying to time the market. So it's about, it really is impossible to be consistently buying at a low price and selling at a high price. So that is really a common mistake that people should avoid doing. Just stick to it. Again, stay in the market. It's time in the market that you need to focus on. The second thing that people do tend to do is lack diversification. So when I talk about diversification, it just means that they will put all their money in a cash deposit, but in a cash deposit, you're not earning very much. So what you should be doing is splitting your money between, say, equities, bonds, and some other asset classes. But it's really to diversify across different asset classes, because all those different types of investments give you different returns. And if you're putting it just in one place, there's either a higher risk because maybe you have it in equities only, or you're not going to gain enough return because you're in a low risk investment.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that is for me specifically, because I work at Satrix, which is, of course, we offer low cost investments. It's really about high fees. So when you consider an investment, one of the main things you should really consider is, what is the fee for this investment? Because if whatever you're investing in is giving you, say, a return of 10% a year, but you are paying a fee of 2.5% a year, then you're paying away 2.5%. So effectively, you're getting 7.5%, right? So what you want to do is really find low-cost options like ETFs, like index funds, that will give you, that you pay less fees for that investment. And last but definitely not least is just, again, to look back at yourself, like we said earlier, in terms of, why am I selling, or why am I buying, or why am I reacting emotionally, when actually, if the market is going down, it's more than likely that it's going to recover over time. So if I stick to it, if I stay in the market, then you can avoid that panic selling. And that's also, that does affect your investment when you sell very low, because now you're not gaining enough on your investment over time. So it's really to keep, yourself steady, and to understand that I have time. I can, whether the market changes.
So you hear so much of ETFs now, right? And I think it speaks about a basket of investments, your stocks and your bonds. So what are ETFs?
So an ETF, first of all, it's short for an exchange traded fund. So what it says is, I have a fund of equities, a whole basket, like you said, a basket of equities, whether it's your top 40, which would include your Absas, your Woolworths, your Truworths, your Sanlam. They'd all sit within that top 40 basket, right? So this is a basket, and it's called a fund. So what we then do is we take that fund and we list it on an exchange. So exchange, fund, and then what you as investor can do is you can just go and buy one unit of that fund on the exchange. So that means you can trade it on the exchange, which makes it an exchange traded fund.
Okay.
So that's just a basic thing. But what an exchange traded fund gives you is really, it gives you so many more options, because if you had 10 Rand or 50 Rand, so you have your 50 Rand, maybe you can only buy one security, or you can only go buy Absa, or you can only go buy Woolies, or whichever stock you want to buy.
Yeah.
But what you want to do, remember we spoke about diversification. What you want to do is actually buy different stocks, which gives you different opportunities for your investment to grow. So instead of buying one stock, you go and buy an exchange traded fund, or a fund of stocks that's listed. And so you get exposure to all of those stocks in an exchange traded fund. You can get an exposure to stocks, you can get exposure to bonds, you can get exposure to stocks, bonds, and offshore investments. So it just gives you an option to really diversify with what you have into different either assets or asset classes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, Lauren, I know that you've been with Satrix now for 11 years, if I'm not mistaken, which has been an extraordinary career. How has your experience been, especially in this line of work?
It's been very educational for me to see that, you know, anybody can invest.
Yeah.
Anybody can really access the market, and you can access not only the local market, you can access the offshore market. It's just shown me that nobody has an excuse to not invest. Here Satrix, it's accessible. One of our, you know, one of our large local ETFs, you can get it at a cost of 0.1%. Where have you ever heard of getting anything at 0.1%? You know, so it's really taught me that we can make investments accessible to everybody. And nowadays, everybody has the internet. You have apps that allow you to access, you know, you can access Satrix through the Satrix Now app, even through your normal banking app. A lot of banks have asset management arms, which also offer you, you know, investments. And over and above just making it accessible, it's made it easy for people to invest and to see how their money can grow over time. And that's been, you know, one of the biggest things for me working at Satrix, and just being able to offer people that opportunity to invest.
All right, so Lauren, I'm sure there's somebody watching that's probably wondering, you know, I've got, you know, not as much on myself. So what's the least that I could invest? So let's say I've got 50 Rand on me, but, you know, I can't, you know, invest in the upcoming months. What then happens?
So you can invest as little as 50 Rand a month or not even a month. For each transaction that you do on the Satrix Now app or via Satrix Now on the web, you can invest as little as 50 Rand, right? And what that means is that it doesn't have to be every month. It can be, say you're working at a restaurant and this month, last night you made 500 Rand tips or whatever, 300, and you want to put away part of that as your 50 Rand. So you can do it at any point in time. Yes, there is an option for you to create a debit order, which does create, you know, the behavior of being consistent, but being able to invest whenever you want and as little or as much as you want means that you can do it at any point in the day, in the week, in the month. You're not restricted to only put away 50 Rand a month. You can do it whenever you have that money available to you.
All right. There you guys have it. I think it's also amazing to know that you can start wherever you're at, right? Whether it's even with investing, with as little as you have, which is awesome and amazing. Lauren, thank you so much for your time and being on the platform, sharing out your knowledge on, you know, setting your first investment. I truly, truly appreciate you. All the best with your career right there at Satrix.
Thanks so much, Karabo. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. All right, extraordinary conversations right here at the Satrix Money School podcast. Please don't forget to hashtag Satrix Money School. This was an extraordinary conversations with Letabo and of course Lauren Jacobs all the way from Satrix. I hope you guys found these lessons informative and engaging. It's always nice and a breath of fresh air to hear real stories and how these individuals have turned, you know, their passion for what they do into wealth. And I hope you guys found this insightful. I'm your host. My name is Karabo Mohola. See you guys next time. Peace.